It is now December 1st of 2019, which means we are only 19 days away from the official release of Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker by Disney, Lucasfilm, and of course director J.J. Abrams. That is all set and ready to end the sequel trilogy and the Skywalker saga itself. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel for future Star Wars content. Now, one thing about Episode 9 that a lot of fans are very curious and worried about, as well as being very excited about, is of course exactly how J.J. Abrams is going to end the entire Skywalker saga that started back in 1977. You can only imagine how much of an importance it really is to Disney and Lucasfilm to really end this thing properly, and from what we actually have been going over the past couple of weeks, give or take, a lot of fans are expressing mixed reactions based on different aspects such as Palpatine's death, and exactly what happens with Rey, and exactly what happens between both Rey and Palpatine, which we will go over, and how it really does seem very similar to exactly how Harry Potter was actually treated with the franchise between both Harry and Lord Voldemort. So let's get right into this. Now, what's really intriguing about all of this is that it's actually said that shot descriptions consisting of a sequence where it's explained that both Rey and Ben Solo are said to be put into a Force-free state where they are unable to move, where Sidious eventually uses the Force Storm to destroy the First Order and the Resistance. It's explained that Sidious destroys the First Order completely along with Allegiant General Pryde, and that in the sequence eventually Ben Solo breaks free and fights Palpatine briefly before getting killed. It said that eventually the final battle between Rey and Palpatine, granddaughter versus grandfather, takes place where they are put into a standoff. It said that in the sequence Sidious uses his Force lightning against Rey in the final battle that is said to last under a minute long, where Rey is said to deflect her lightning back at Sidious to the point where he begins to disintegrate. It's explained that the visuals of Palpatine's death include CGI of him breaking apart into pieces, and that the visuals of Palpatine's death are near similar to Voldemort's death in the Harry Potter franchise. Now, it's described that Palpatine's death is actually seen this time where no ambiguity is placed, where it's said that the sequence involves Rey deflecting the lightning back at Palpatine using both Leia and Anakin's lightsabers in a crossed position, and that as the lightning takes over Palpatine's body, he begins to vanish into thin air after breaking apart slowly into pieces. It's explained that the scene is near similar to Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2's ending, and that J.J. Abrams took inspiration from the film, since he is a Harry Potter fan at heart. Once Palpatine dies, it's described that Rey makes a run for it as Palpatine's throne room begins to crumble and fall apart, where his throne eventually falls into the collapsing ground, where Rey sprints her way out of the actual Dark Temple to hop into Luke Skywalker's X-Wing before she actually departs. Now, during this moment of Palpatine's death, it's said that he screams to the point where the audio eventually dampens as the music begins to take over the scene, where Palpatine's face begins to rip apart piece by piece, where a full body shot of Sidious is seen of him shredding into pieces before vanishing into nothing, leaving a trail of dust, only for his throne room to crumble from the exchange of power between Palpatine and Rey. It's that Disney and Lucasfilm not only took inspiration from HBO's hit series Game of Thrones, which is why they cast many actors of that TV show for Star Wars as a whole, but they are also inspired by the Harry Potter films, and that the inspiration of Palpatine's death was inspired from Voldemort's death in Harry Potter. So let's go over a couple of parts about this. Now, the fact that J.J. Abrams is inspired by the Harry Potter franchise to kind of implement those ideas into The Rise of Skywalker is something that I think a lot of fans are either going to like or dislike. To be honest with you guys, I'm not quite sure how I really feel about Palpatine's death, of how Rey is said to be the one who destroys him once and for all. We've gone over this before in the past, and I've honestly expressed that I really do prefer that at minimum they should have had Kylo Ren and Rey fighting Ben Solo, or should I say fighting Palpatine to the death once Kylo Ren becomes Ben Solo. So basically how it should have been done, in my point of view, is that you should have had Ben Solo and Rey fighting Palpatine, doing the exact thing that's happening here between Rey and Palpatine, where the Force lightning deflects back at Sidious and he basically disintegrates. Now, this is obviously JJ, going back over to Harry Potter's and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 and taking inspiration from Lord Voldemort's death. In fact, it's said that the visuals are said to be near similar of how Voldemort dies and how Palpatine dies in The Rise of Skywalker, and that his death is actually visually seen and confirmed on screen, so that fans cannot say, did Palpatine survive, or maybe Palpatine's not dead. They want to make it perfectly clear that Sidious this time is dead once and for all. And that, to me, I think that the fact that JJ drawed a lot of ideas from Harry Potter, I'm really not quite sure, how that's really going to line directly up with Star Wars. I feel that Palpatine's death here seems a little poor, if I really had to be very honest with you guys, and just not putting anything over that. I will say that they could have done so much more with Palpatine's death, and they could have really added more to the battle between Palpatine, Ben, and Rey. I think the one thing that's going to divide fans is that Rey, of all people, is said to be the actual person that destroys the Sith once and for all, and becomes the chosen one in The Rise of Skywalker, and not even Kylo Ren. You would think that the last remaining Skywalker, Ben Solo, who's got that mighty Skywalker blood, as Luke Skywalker said in The Last Jedi, should have really been able to be the one to destroy Sidious once and for all, as opposed to Rey. Now, granted, alright, in this scene, the Force ghosts of the past become a part of Rey. So that's basically their way of justifying that Rey has the power to destroy Palpatine, but at the same exact time, I think that it really seems like it's poor writing that they could not just have the last remaining Skywalker to destroy Palpatine once and for all. Now, the reason as to why he kills Ben Solo and doesn't want him to become his new apprentice is that this is actually to take revenge on the Skywalker bloodline. And that's exactly why he falls into the abyss, never to be seen again. That is Ben Solo's death, falling into a pit, a bottomless pit where you never see him again. Obviously not literally a bottomless pit, but that's what the visuals appear like. It's a dark, shadowy pit where there's no bottom to it visually speaking. And that's going to be very intriguing because the visuals are said to be a bird's eye view of Kylo Ren falling down that deep chasm, similar to Han Solo's death. So basically, Ben's death is said to directly mirror Han Solo's death. That's a very interesting poetic thing. I can see where J.J. Abrams was coming from, but at the very minimum, they could have actually handled Ben Solo's death a little bit better because his death is said to be ambiguous. No Force Ghost voice of Ben Solo, that's just it. Now, this also contradicts a piece of canon material in the Snoke comic, or the Kylo Ren comic, where they're training on Dagobah, where Snoke is training Kylo Ren through the ways of the dark side. He falls down a deep chasm, or a deep pit, if you will, on Dagobah, and just before he hits the bottom, he is able to use the Force to stop himself from hitting the ground. Why couldn't Ben Solo do that in The Rise of Skywalker? So, once this movie releases, I want everybody to go ahead and look back at that Kylo Ren / Snoke comic, and you will realize that this death in particular will actually really contradict the comics and the actual canon and the lore. Now, obviously, maybe, they could just say, well, Ben Solo wasn't able to focus using the Force at that point in time, or, something around those lines that caused him to die. Now, the thing about The Rise of Skywalker taking inspiration from other franchises out there, I'm not quite sure how great of a thing that really is. The fact that this particular scene between Palpatine and Rey is completely based off of the final battle between Harry Potter and Voldemort. I just don't know how, I'm really going to react to that when I see it on screen. Obviously, it's going to be interesting to see Palpatine once more in this franchise. I will say I'm still excited about that, but my big critique about this movie, so far from what we have been hearing, is that the ending is Palpatine dies by the hands of Rey and by his own power. So, by the hands of Rey, by deflecting the lightning back at him. So, with that being said, the fact that JJ took inspiration from Harry Potter and how the ending goes full Harry Potter mode and really kind of just borrows elements from the franchise, it really does make you wonder now. Since JJ is a fan of Harry Potter, was Kylo Ren in The Force Awakens based on Snape? That's a big question, right? But moving on, guys, I will say that this movie, 19 days away, it's going to be a very interesting experience to see how well it's going to do, at the box office, what the Rotten Tomatoes scores are going to be like, both critics and audience-wise, and just overall, how the fans are going to react to this. So anyways, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
once again.